Happy Friday to you. I'm meteorologist Rob Ellis here in the Doppler 13 Forecast Center. I want to talk about the weather impact, the alert that we're giving you for winter weather impacts, potentially significant winter weather impacts on Sunday all the way through Monday midday. This is your timing of when, and it's really going to be a Sunday system for the most part, but we may wrap it up on Monday. The impacts, there will be a lot, and there's a lot to go through here, but trust me, I'm going to go through all of this. I'm going to show you some snowfall output from some of the models. I'll give you our official forecast. A lot to go through. Heavy snow. The takeaways are that some ice and sleet may mix in, especially south of 70. That's going to make for snowy and icy roads, and this will be a travel impact type of system. 4 to 7 inches of snow, but there are some caveats there, and I'll get to that. So you may need a little bit of extra travel time. Keep that in mind, especially if you're traveling on Sunday. Let's start with where we are. Watches and warnings. Winter storm watches are in place, but those are going to be changed to warnings through the day. That timing will continue. If you are seeing a few snow flurries on your Friday, that is not related to the current, to the system that we're forecasting. It's a little bit of lake effect. That system is kicking out of here. The system that we're watching is actually well out into the Pacific, and still you can make out the spin here as it comes on shore. Now, I've been pretty vocal about mentioning that until that system comes on shore, the details with what to expect as far as exact snowfall totals, how much ice will mix in, the track of the storm, they're going to be highly variable until this comes on shore. Then all of the data from all of the observing sites, the flights that go into the storm, in and out of the airports here, that all gets ingested into computer models, and it makes the computer models much more reliable, much more accurate. You get much better data into the forecast, you get a much better forecast out of it. Once that system comes on shore and moves a little farther to the east, it will start to induce an area of low pressure somewhere across the Central Plains, and that whole system will start to move to the east. Will likely start as snow. At some point, we're concerned about the transition to icing. That's our first big concern as far as where there may be some room for changes in the forecast. And then also changing back to snow, how much moisture is left on the back side of this. That's probably the second thing that may change some of the snowfall totals. And I'm going to show you some of the computer models as far as what they're spitting out to maybe change things up a bit when it comes to our snowfall forecast. So keep this in mind. It's not just about the snowfall totals. There may be snow, there may be sleet and freezing rain, potentially all possible and potentially all at the same time. You may be, especially if you're farther south from Indy, seeing snow and sleet fall at the same time, switching back to one or the other or all three through the course of this event. Also want to mention this. What can change? What is still variable in this part of the forecast? Well, I feel pretty good that the track is almost locked down, but keep in mind that any minor movements in that track will change a lot of these impacts. Icing, this is the big question mark. This is kind of a meteorologist's nightmare when it comes to P-type changes, precipitation type changes. And then that ending snow that I talked about, a couple of the models are really ramping that up. And if you're a snow lover, that's where you're hoping that the models really get a good handle on this, because it could bump up some of those snowfall totals. So let's get through the next 36 hours pretty dry. Temperatures are cold, teens and 20s. Do expect some sunshine for the rest of the Friday and even into your Saturday. Here's Saturday at 12 p.m. Pretty good. You've got 36 hours to get anything done that you need to get done. Go to the store, whatever little chores that you have to get done. Saturday's not a bad day. It's going to be dry. And also, this is great news for NDOT. They don't have any rainy systems that are coming in ahead of this to wash any treatment off the roads. They can pre-treat, they can do the brine, they can put down the salt, and it's not going to wash away. Once this begins, sometime Sunday morning, maybe just before the sun comes up, it will likely begin as snow, and this is where we could get some bursts of snow at times, at least at the initial onset of the system. As we step into midday in the afternoon, this is where, and I put this in a red box because this is where there's a big question mark. How much of this will change over to sleet or even a little bit of freezing rain? Couple of details there. How far north will it extend and how long will it last? Those two things, the northern extent of the sleet or freezing rain, which has a lot to do with the temperatures in the mid-levels of the atmosphere, but also how long that sleet lasts. If we're talking snowfall totals and you're a snow lover and you want more snowfall totals, the sleet is going to eat into all of that. It's also going to make it kind of yucky on the roads, even more complicated than the forecast already is. Once we get into late Sunday evening, this is going to transition back to snow. Now, on the back side of this system, instead of that heavy wet snow that we'll see at the beginning of the system, this is going to be a fluffier snow. This is where really the models could start to crank out some snow that's going to really pump up the totals. It doesn't take very much moisture to get an inch or 2 inches or 3 inches of snow out of that on the back side of this. This will linger through about Monday midday, should end around midday, although some flurries are still even possible as we look to Monday afternoon. There's your timing in a nutshell. Let's talk snowfall totals. In general, there's going to be a swath of heavier snow. There's still some movement in this. There's also the possibility that some of this will get eaten into, especially in southern Indiana, by a little bit of ice or sleet mixing in. I am going to show you some specific snowfall totals, some of the models coming up, but here's our forecast for now. And this will be adjusted, it'll be changed, it'll be massaged, it'll be moved around a bit as that fine tuning of that data comes in. There are going to be some isolated higher amounts, but I think 4 to 7 is a pretty good number, especially in southern Indiana. We may need to slide this in. I was just getting some new information in before I came on the air here, and it's suggesting that maybe southern Indiana will get the heaviest amount. So if anything, we may need to adjust this slightly to the south a bit. But again, that also complicates things because there's the sleet mixing in. Could it be accumulating sleet? Keep in mind, it's only going to take about a ½ an inch of sleet that would equate to about 5 inches of snow. So take 5 inches of snow out of the forecast and replace it with about a ½ an inch of sleet. But of course, if you're driving, ½ an inch of sleet or even some freezing rain here is not going to be good news. That's going to really complicate travel, especially from Indy down to Louisville. Could be treacherous for your Sunday. By Monday morning, I think it's going to transition back to snow, but how much icing is problematic. Okay, I know you want to see snowfall totals. I know you want to see some of the models. I'll walk you through some of these. These are highly variable and will change, but I know you want to get some of the details. So about 5 inches of snow according to this particular model. This is our 15-kilometer model. Getting in a little closer, you'll notice that this number does get up to 5, but there are going to be some higher amounts here and there. The resolution on this particular model isn't as high. It's why all the numbers are generally in the same amount. It also is not accounting for certain things in the model, and I'll show you some additional models here that have some big variations in what we're expecting from that. This particular model does bring this a little farther to the south, but watch what it does. Through Sunday at 6 o'clock, it has much higher totals. And part of the reason for that is that back end of the storm, some of these models are really generating a lot of additional moisture where the numbers go up significantly. I'll show you the GFS, and notice the resolution isn't as high, but watch what it does. Through about Sunday at 6 p.m., it only has 3 or 4 inches of snow, at least in Indy, but some significantly higher amounts farther to the south. But once the backside of this fluffier, heavier snow comes in, the numbers go up substantially. In fact, by Monday early morning, this particular model, not saying I discount it completely, I'm not saying that I buy into it wholeheartedly. It's additional data that I'm folding into our forecast, but the numbers go up from even there, especially as some of that fluffy, dry snow kicks in. I think those numbers may be a bit too high, but would I rule them out completely? No, not at all. Keep in mind that a lot of those numbers are going to get eaten into if the sleet forecast ramps up or if it shifts a little farther to the north. Again, about a ½ an inch of sleet. Really, you can move the decimal point, and that'll give you a rough estimate of how much snow you would see if it were to fall as snow. So 5 inches of snow, roughly equivalent to a ½ an inch of sleet, give or take. It's not a true way to measure that, but in general, it's a good idea. And it really appears that the southern half of the state is going to have some type of sleet. The duration is really going to be what determines where we have some issues with the storm forecast. 1/4 inch of ice, that's going to be a concern. We're talking freezing rain here. That's mainly going to be in the southern part of the state, but it's not going to take much if you adjust the track to lift that a little bit farther to the north. So again, just to reiterate, our official forecast, 4 to 7, we will likely tweak this. I'm getting new information. I'll fold that into this forecast and say, yeah, we need to make a few adjustments. Expect that there will be some slight changes. These are the questions that I'm still asking as we look at that part of the forecast. How much sleet is going to eat into those snowfall totals? How much more moisture may add to those snowfall totals? Will we see some locations that pick up more than 8 inches of snow? How about a foot of snow? Is it possible? Absolutely. Keep in mind, though, the last time we saw 6 inches of snow was back in February of 2022. That was a one-day total. To get to an 8-inch total, you have to go back to January of 2019, 5 years ago. That's a 2-day total. And more than 10 inches of snow, that was back in 2018. So the frequency of these storms is certainly there, but the higher the snowfall total, is certainly a longer delay. You have to go back in the records a little bit farther. It will certainly be a significant impact. Will it be a historic storm? I don't think so at this point, but there's still a lot of variability. And while the track and certain things are coming into focus, the snow and sleet is really what concerns me as a meteorologist as far as trying to get the forecast as accurate as possible. It complicates things quite a bit. By Monday, the lingering flurries are there. And then if we have snowpack on the ground, look at your overnight low temperatures. We're talking about getting down close to 0 if we have significant snowpack. You change the amount of snowpack that we have on the ground, or perhaps erode it because of sleet or freezing rain, and it may warm these numbers up. If you have a more consistent snowpack of all snow, it may cool these numbers down, and of course wind chill is going to be there as well. Keep it tuned right here to our forecast. We will be updating things. You can also check us out on air at 4, 5, 6, and 11.